I finally received a buyback for my 2023 Infiniti QX60 Autograph. I'm Anthony from Hawkeye Rides, and I'm going to go over the reason why we decided to stick with Infiniti for our third Infiniti QX60. In 2022, they decided to drop the CVT transmission. So in 2014, the model we had, which was our second Infiniti, had the CVT transmission. We had over 175,000 miles. But I thought, you know what? They increased the horsepower here to 295 and 270 pound-feet of torque. But the power wasn't really the whole reason why I decided to jump in. It was because of the CVT transmission. Again, didn't have any problems, but the dealership were saying that I could potentially have some down the road, and it could cost up to $8,000 to repair, and then give me a discount for $6,000. So I said, no way. So I went up to DC to pick up this vehicle because they did not have this exterior color in the whole state of Florida. It was very hard to get an Autograph. And I wanted that 9-speed automatic transmission because it's basically bulletproof. And while I was getting this particular vehicle, I said, you know, I want to keep the wheels that I have because we have a 22-inch wheel, and I don't like the 20-inch wheels that come on the Autograph. We also decided to paint the calipers, which took over a month to do because they blew the pistons in the brakes. And you got a dual piston in the front, a single in the rear. And for some reason, the brake company said, we don't know how we can fix it because it's a 2023, it's a brand new vehicle. I said, dude, you could retrofit it. And finally they did. I literally was driving a Toyota Camry for 1 month. And the graphite shadow, for some reason, is difficult to get in the state of Florida with the saddle interior. We wanted all-wheel drive. The Autograph gives it to you standard. Our prior, we had to add it. You get the 6,000 pounds of towing. Before, we had 5,000 pounds of towing. We have the full roof racks. We got the mud flaps. These are all upgrades to the vehicle, but why did we get a buyback? We've had engine issues where it feels like the vehicle is going to die. It actually put it into neutral one time because they had to replace the fuel pump. Apparently that's a common problem with the Infiniti QX60. I never had any with my prior 2 vehicles, and the last one we owned for 9 years, almost 10 years. The next reason is because we had water leaks. One was in the back. The way I initially found it is I just unscrewed this, and this whole thing was saturated with water. So then I carried on to open up this here, and I noticed everything was rusted. This was brown instead of this bluish color, and you could still see some of the rust right here because you can only get so much of it off, but every single thing in the interior was redone, every bolt, every screw. And the other apparently was in the passenger front seat, and for the leak in the front, I popped up this. They didn't have this because this is all new, so it's all new floor. I popped this little thing and I found a ton of water, so I started vacuuming it and I kind of pulled it up a little bit and I could see the rust. And that's where they indicated that there's another leak that's in the front somewhere, but it was not due to the moonroof, but it was somewhere in this vicinity because they had to take the whole dashboard out. It took about 3 to 4 months, and the only reason why they finally decided to fix the guts is because everything rusted out in the interior underneath the carpet because there's protectants that's not only sound deadening, but they don't absorb water. So the water was literally sitting there and it smelled like a sewer. It took maybe 10, 15 times for me going back and forth. And then I decided to pull some of the compartments underneath the floor of the vehicle to see the rust, took some pictures, they saw it. They fixed only this portion first, and then we continued to have that smell. So I popped some of the plastic screws up and I saw water in those areas. And that's when they decided to remove every single thing in the interior, including the dash, to fix or find the source of the problems. Infiniti ultimately settled with $1,500 because I said, we really want to keep the car. We like it. It has full LEDs in the front and the rear, and this two-tone with the way we spec'd it out. It's a little bit rare. The problems with the occupancy sensor, that's your airbag sensor on the passenger side. It's usually the little mat, but there's also a sensor. I've replaced it myself, and some Infiniti owners know that they go bad. So we replaced the cheaper variant, and we had a few more issues with that. Then on the driver's seat, we had multiple times where I would say at least 3 times had to fix the massage seat mechanism, and they even had to fix the whole seat belt mechanism because they said it was probably due to the water. Sadly, we are getting rid of this, and we are going to a 2025 Infiniti QX60 Autograph, which is the Turbo 4 VC turbocharged engine. It's going to have the same towing capabilities. We'll have a review on that vehicle. It wasn't something that I decided to go to. I was really looking to change it to BMW, Mercedes, or Audi. But because of the deal that we got, it wouldn't make sense, because if I trade the vehicle in at the miles, we have over 34,000 miles, I only get maybe 42 grand. Power liftgate that goes into 14.5 cubic feet of storage, which is more than enough for a family of 5, because that's what I have. You have a 12-volt charger. You do have bag holders here on the side, and underneath you have a storage. We have the 2 areas here that would divide it, but I took it out because I have my bag. Fold the rear bench. You just pull this here, and then you fold it down here like that. That's going to increase the cargo to 41.6 cubic feet. The Autograph also has it where you push the button, you don't have to hold it, and it'll fold back up at that 60-40 split. So I like that, because in 14 they didn't offer that. But you do have to go into the 3rd row in order to maximize the cargo to 75.4 cubic feet. By pulling this lever here, it'll fold the captain seats down flat, making it a little bit more easier for the load. The key fob to my 2023 Infiniti QX60. You can see the chrome delete. We did it even on the door handles. Going into 12-way power seat adjustment for the driver and passenger, heated, ventilated, massage. You get the Autograph. You can barely see it, but it is right here. You get the contrast stitch in the piping, and this is Anaheim leather. Memory for the driver and passenger. The interior is a driver-focused setup. We have the upgraded Bose Performance Series with 17 speakers that also includes a subwoofer. When you go Autograph, you get the diamond stitch that's going to be on the dashboard. But the contrast stitch, as you're noticing, is more of a beige instead of a white because of how long it was in the shop. Let's fire it up. So to go through the specs quickly, you have a digital rear view mirror that comes standard with this vehicle. All the features on the Autograph is standard. So heads-up display, digital gauge reader that is configurable. It's not really fully configurable, but you can change the layout to it. It takes a few seconds to go in. You can make it look kind of old school. You can go this route. And I have actually lowered the amount of settings in this because you can have a ton of different settings here. 12.3 informational display, but you see with the Apple CarPlay, that is wireless. It doesn't cover up the whole screen. So if you have Sirius XM, you can put it here for the weather or whatever you like. If you click back and go into Infiniti, this is what I mean by the screen size. So this is what you get for Apple CarPlay, and this is what you would get for your regular screen. It does come standard with the 360-degree reverse camera, full trajectory for the front and the rear. You also have the camera button here that you can change different camera positions, so that way you can see around the vehicle. Tri-climate control settings is standard, which you can control from here or you can control there. You can actually lock them. So I think that's a pretty cool feature if the kids are playing around with the standard wireless charging pad. Driving mode select, you have a few driving modes. When you go to this tier, it adds the snow because we have the all-wheel drive configuration. Personal, you can change it to make it a little bit more sporty. You still have a rotary knob that can control your infotainment screen. And this is kind of configurable too, but what I did is I made it configurable just to here, so that way it makes it a little bit more easy. Opening up, you have 2 card holders, you have a pin holder, another pin holder, card holder, USB, and you have a 12-volt here, which I use for my dash cam there. It is going to be a bit soft, but as you're noticing, the contrast stitch that should be white, it's more brown. But the interior space is more than enough for the front occupants. You get a large pano, but when you go back to the older models that were not the refresh, you would have a 3rd panel for the 3rd row. LED interior lights, well, you kind of sort of have it, but then look how they cheap out. They give you this, and the same thing for the puddle lights. Leather wrap steering wheel, it's heated, multi-function. You get paddle shifts, it's a 9-speed, so you can enjoy that. Heated steering wheel, you have an adaptive cruise control. This pattern with the contrast stitch does carry on into the dash, so I appreciate that. I think they did a good job just with the touch to feel, because it's soft everywhere that you would actually touch, which that was one reason why I went this route. You get the wood inlays because this is the Autograph and it carries on into the dash. It also has ambient lighting that will go underneath here, but it's just one color. One touch up and down for all the windows. It's soft to touch where you need it to be. I could fit literally like 8 different bottles here. You have a full pass-through here. For the back seat, this is the opening that you have with the manual sunshades to start it off with. I thought the kids would really like this, but they seem to put it down a lot. So if you're thinking, well, I need the sunshades, you may not, but the captain seat configuration, it definitely changed the whole dynamics of my family. Soft to touch here, a little bit smaller storage pocket, but we were still able to fit about 4 cupper bottles through it. The kick plates do illuminate. This is the leg room that you would have behind me. You can also adjust this forward and backwards, making it more room, but you sit up higher. You can recline this, which will give you a ton of headroom, and it just a little bit more relaxing in this vehicle. But as you're noticing, at 6'3", my head is hitting the headliner. It doesn't go downwards because the moonroof is actually in front of me. You get cup holders, a storage. This can be picked up. You just have to pop this cover off here and it's going to make a pop. So you're going to think, oh shoot, I broke it. You didn't. That's actually the way you take it out. And then you push this little button here and it will release it and it'll have a pass through. I wish it was a little bit more seamless, but it isn't. You get your third climate control, heated rear seats, 2 USB ports, and you get a home plug with storage behind both of the front seats and the air vents in the ceiling. For the third row, you push the button and it's going to slide forward. You can fit 2 more back here. It does have like a little phone holder here. Both sides have a USB port, 2 cup holders, and you got the air vents in the ceiling, so I appreciate that. I was a little skeptical about getting the captain seat configuration because this is the only way you can get it with the Autograph, but surprisingly, headroom and legroom, it's not really bad because you can scoot. You can also recline these back a little bit more so like that, making it a little bit more of a pleasurable drive even though you sit up higher. But with my 3 kids, they actually enjoyed the separation. Nearly 300 horsepower. What do you get? A luxury vehicle with 9-speed automatic transmission instead of a CVT transmission, the buyback. What all happened? Not only the water leaks, but we replaced 3 different mechanisms for the massage seat. The whole seat, they actually ended up putting a new one in for the guts of it. The seatbelt tensioner, they had to replace that on the driver's side. The passenger side, they had to do the occupancy sensor. They also had to do some wiring. All the wiring underneath the car has been redone, and they had to multiple times readjust things. They forgot to do this, they forgot to do that type of thing. So it was in the dealership the first couple times for between 2 to 3 months. That itself was enough to pretty much get a buyback, but we decided to keep the car. The reason why we went Infiniti again opposed to BMW, Audi, and Mercedes was because the service is inexpensive. You get 3 years service free whenever you buy a new Infiniti. Plus, the pricing of the vehicle for the specs that you get, and my wife wasn't really all about performance at the time, but since we have 2 performance variants now in our driveway, she's all about saying, well, I want a BMW, or I want an Audi, or even something more expensive, which all those vehicles cost a lot more money in service. So that's why we said, you know what, this is an everyday vehicle. An everyday vehicle should be something that's inexpensive to service, which you only pay about $50 for an oil change, and that's typically every 5,000 to 6,000 miles on the vehicle. The filters you can change out yourself. The serpentine belt you can change out yourself. The spark plugs, I've done all of those things. They're actually on the channel so you can watch them. I did them on my prior 2014 model, which it's the same exact engine. They just up the horsepower and torque, plus adding that 9-speed automatic transmission. My NPGs, we average about 20.4 combined. We've got it up to about 21-ish. So that's more or less what you would expect for a day in and day out drive. We do hit about 2.5 to 3 RPMs pretty much everywhere we go. Some other issues that we had is where the transmission, when we were in traffic, it happened to me. I was driving kind of in stop traffic and it went into neutral. That's when they said we have to replace your fuel pump. They replaced the fuel lines. They replaced the injectors. So those were some other components that were replaced in this vehicle of the 34,215 miles that we have driven the vehicle. We've done 5 oil changes already on the vehicle. Tire rotation, it's actually kind of interesting. When we bought the vehicle in DC, they didn't put the centric hub, which is a ring that you put around the hub when you put aftermarket wheels. So we drove this all the way down, that's 1,000 miles. We went to Pennsylvania and back, that's 3,000 miles, plus I would say an additional 5,000-6,000 miles. I started looking at the tires and they were bald on the edge because there was nothing that was holding the wheel on the hub. We had to buy all new wheels, even though these wheels were brand new when we changed them out to this vehicle. So that kind of sucked. Infiniti, I think it's called Shiai Infiniti, they changed dealerships, so they closed the one that we bought it from. I don't recommend them. Their service and just the way they handled everything was really very poor. As for the dealerships here, I've been working exclusively with Infiniti of Clearwater. They have taken care of everything, giving us loaners. They have changed some of their things with the loaners, so they don't like to do where they pick you up, but I also live about 50-ish miles away from that particular dealer, so I can understand why they wouldn't send valet to pick me up and drop me off a vehicle. Was it a great purchase? It was at the time, but I would say within a couple of months we had the water leak, so that leather coat smell went really quick and just disgusting in the interior. It made it where we were buying all types of different air fresheners, and it wouldn't help. Car just stunk. As for the ride quality, when you change to an aftermarket wheel like we did, it's going to be uncomfortable. The road noise does filter in a lot more so. They do have some issues with the active sound cancellation, which when it doesn't work correctly, it will pump in sound through the interior. The dealership says that they can turn it off, so that is something to take in consideration if you are looking at this particular vehicle. As for the company, they do stand behind their product because they're buying it back. Turn radius is about 2 lanes. Let's rock and roll. Why am I buying another one? Because of the deal that I'm getting, it's basically $10,000 difference from trade-in value, so it doesn't make sense to trade the vehicle, and it doesn't make sense to not get the new variant because I'll have more equity. Therefore, if we want to trade later on down the road, it just is a lot better deal all in one, where we get maybe $5,000-$6,000 difference of buying a brand new vehicle with 0 miles, and now we have better value to the vehicle because we're not trading at 32,000+ miles. But if you're looking for a strong vehicle that lasts, usually these are vehicles that stay on the road for a very long time. We had 2 before this. The second one, like I said at the exterior part of the review, over 175,000 miles. A 2014, it was a CVT transmission, never a problem. We just kept up with all the services, and that's key to any vehicle these days. And all of the new models have where the cylinders deactivate. So this will go into a 4-cylinder when you're going at lower RPMs, and then it bumps up to a 6-cylinder. So my concern of the VC turbocharged engine, at least you're getting the full 4 cylinders out of it, opposed to this where it cuts down to 4 cylinders and goes up to 6 cylinders depending on how you mash on the gas pedal. That itself has given us issues with idle, where the car actually died a couple times on us. But was it a good idea to go back to Infiniti because we got the buyback? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and check this next video out right here.